You know, when you meet some people and go, wow, how do they achieve the things they do? Well, my guests today are two amazing humans who are continually pushing boundaries most of the time. Jola Chudy is a mum and ex publisher who left her senior corporate role to pursue her passion for running, if I may, and to build her own business. From zero running experience just a few years ago, circa 2019, to completing an Ironman and only a 252-kilometer ultramarathon, no easy feat, she is a force to be reckoned with. And right next to her is Melia, a coach based in Dubai who helps individuals and businesses tackle challenges, set and achieve their goals, and navigate obstacles. He has completed a 36-hour-long tennis marathon, wow, and is currently training for a 560-kilometer run to raise funds in support of Gaza. Jola, Stephen, it's so wonderful to have you on.
Thank you for having
We're
us.
so happy to be here.
So happy to have you both. Let's start off with a little bit of background. I know I've given the listeners some intro, but I'd love to hear from you, your story, and what got you into sport.
Okay, do you want to go first or
Please,
shall I?
you go.
So I was never really into sport growing up. I think I had like a typical British school upbringing where we did sports in the rain and the freezing cold while being shouted at by an angry PE teacher. So
That sounds like
I
some
kind of, as soon
conditioning.
as I could, I quit. And I really didn't do exercise or have it in my life in any meaningful way, probably until like my late 30s and 40s when I started running a little bit just to relieve stress. I was in quite a sort of high stress job and it was very office based. So I thought as an antidote to being stuck behind a desk,
Slightly sedentary.
I was like, oh, I'll just go for like a little run.
Mhm.
And my first running coach was actually a cartoon unicorn on this app called Couch to 5K.
That sounds like something I should get into.
It's very encouraging. But it's a great app because it can take you from being completely sedentary and having no running experience whatsoever to being able to run a 5K without stopping. And when I did that, I was like, oh my God, like I've run 5 kilometers. Like that is absolutely brilliant. And obviously that was a gateway drug. And then I went to 10K.
Oh, wow.
Also with the cartoon unicorn, funnily enough, he was very motivating for some strange reason. And then after that, I was like, right, I entered a community race. I had a PT at the time and he said, oh, you know, you're enjoying your running. Why don't you enter one of these community races in Dubai? And I was like, but I can't, like, I'm not a runner. This is for like the serious runners that are like, you know,
Right,
very
so
fast.
Sorry, how long was that?
This
meant
was
to be?
a 10K.
Another 10K, okay.
I was like, oh, no way, I can't do a 10K race. Anyway, I did, and I loved it. And what I found was I actually met a lot of people that I knew, like socially, acquaintances, people from all walks of life. And yes, there's, you know, people there that are racing for like the first, second or third place podium. But most of the people there were just with friends and they were running and really enjoying the supportive social experience. And I think for me, that kind of got me hooked. And then I was like, oh, I want to do more of this and incorporate it into my life. And then things just got wildly out of hand.
Taking you to a 250. We'll get to what compelled you to do that later on. But Stephen, I want to come to you quickly as well and hear a little bit about your story and what got you here.
Yep. So I'm born in Liverpool, so a relatively sporty family. And I'm a second sibling. I have an older brother who's 6 years older than me. So inevitably I got dragged to everything he was doing. I think that's how probably a lot of second siblings fall into sports, is you just, you don't really have a choice. But yeah, in Liverpool, sports is quite a big thing. You know, it's a working class city. Rains a lot. So yeah, we do get out in the rain quite a bit. And yeah, that was just something I was always passionate about. So I then took a liking to tennis a little bit more. And I was very fortunate to kind of play professionally as a tennis player, which was quite cool, just for a couple of years. And then, you know, so sports kind of training has been something in my life for quite, a long time. And yeah, running was just something I always enjoyed. 2015, I did the Paris Marathon, which was super exciting. And then to be honest, I didn't actually run till probably about 2 years ago. I just had quite a big break from actually any form of training, because stopped being a sportsman. So I sort of didn't have anything to train for. So yeah, and then eventually I was like, I think it was COVID time. I've got to do something, like all this time off. Obviously I was tennis coaching, so I was doing some form of sports, and Yeah, it's just sports is something that's been in my blood.
Okay, so no compulsive PT teacher like Yola's.
I unfortunately didn't have a talking unicorn. I may have dreamt about some
Or talking
sometimes.
unicorns.
I think everyone should have a talking unicorn.
I
in their
actually
lives.
agree. It sounds quite motivating.
I feel like he still lives rent free in my head.
our heads, yeah.
Yeah,
Our
it's,
imaginary friend who just sends us off on running missions.
yeah, no, yeah. Unfortunately, no unicorns for me.
Yeah.
Just yeah, I did have the shouting at coaches, which I felt like I had no choice but to follow.
A different kind of motivator.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about missions, I'm really curious to hear, and before we deviate into other topics, I would like to focus on a very important topic, which is your upcoming run for Gaza. Can you tell us a little bit about that, why it means so much to you, and how you're going about it?
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, 18th of November, I'll be starting like a 5-day run. So I'll be running 512-kilometer ultra marathons over 5 days. So total of 560, which is the length of the E11. So Sheikh Zayed Road. So I thought it's kind of symbolic, something quite, significant in the UAE. And then obviously, as everybody has seen over the last year, unfortunately now the images in Gaza and yeah, to me, it's just been pretty horrifying. And also, certainly from a West point of view, but actually maybe a global point of view, I think the response has probably been quite horrifying from a lot of, well, certainly politicians, let's put it that way. I think,
action.
yeah, people on the ground seem to know what's going on, and, your eyes don't lie to you. It's pretty evident to see what's happening. So for me, I had to do something. Like, I always feel if you're in a position to kind of give back, it could be anything. It doesn't matter what it is, but you sort of have a duty and obligation to try and do something. And yeah, just seeing the images. I have a small son, and obviously, unfortunately, children have been quite heavily affected in this. It was just I wanted to figure out how can I do something to give back. And yeah, each year I like to do some sort of challenge just for myself, because it's just something I find fun. So it really was a no-brainer for me to kind of link these two together and just try and raise as much awareness as possible and hopefully raise as much money as possible.
Well, thank you for being here and for sharing your story. So we'll definitely drop a link in the podcast episode so that you can help you raise money as well for, is it Dubai Cares?
Yeah, so it's through Dubai Cares they set
supporting the
up
initiative.
Yeah.
So please do get involved if you can in whatever capacity. Stephen's doing an amazing thing. And now we will, without further ado, also talk a little bit about what the training actually entails. And
I think one of the things that people maybe don't understand about like endurance training and especially ultramarathon training is that you really don't have to go out and do like a hell of a lot of volume. It's more about like getting really good quality runs in. And of course you have to do some long runs.
Okay.
But even when I was training for MDS, which is 252 kilometers over 6 days, I think the longest week I ever had was like 60 or 70 kilometers of training, which for most runners that are fairly committed or do a lot of running, like that's not like a huge amount. Like probably there's a lot of runners in Dubai that run marathons.
You're speaking to someone who's maxed at 10K. And
but if you think about if you go out for a run every day, that's like 10K every day, right?
Right. So they're doing 60 kilometers a week, and that's sort of the consistent
so I'd break up with like some running, like one would be a running drills session, which is purely focused on the mechanics of running. There's not really any running. You might do 2K that day, then a 5K cadence run to kind of get like the timing right. And then a sprint session, a hill session, and then a longer run on weekend. I did a lot of back-to-backs in Shoka and Fossil Rock, which they were tiring because obviously you'd have to get up really early every morning to drive like an hour out of Dubai. But it's beautiful once you get out there and you're out in nature. I was chasing my running coach,
catching sunrises on the way.
Crew. And but that prepares you for kind of like the mindset, I guess, that you have to push through, because there's so much that you need to prepare for physically, but I think preparing your mind to deal with like tolerating that level of suffer is also part of the process, isn't it? And I know you've been training your mind to suffer all over Dubai. You've been running up and down Kite Beach. I know you run with like loads of running clubs, don't you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in every possible run club.
And even over the summer, you didn't you run like something ridiculous, like 50 kilometers around the
we did 100 kilometers.
100 kilometers around the sports.
The 1K loop.
Just a casual bimble, as you guys say.
A casual bimble.
There is nothing casual about bimbling 100 kilometers in a 1K loop. I mean, I think that's like quite next level.
Oh, you had me at 10K, like I said. So, you know,
I think
anything above that is impressive.
Yola is definitely right. People do think you have to do some sort of. I think that's why it puts a lot of people off, because they think the training is like so extreme, and it actually isn't.
Okay.
I mean, like I say, I'm not doing any more than really 80 to 90 kilometers a week. Again, that might seem a lot, but obviously compared to 560, it might not seem like, oh my gosh, you're not ready.
What is that number in one's head? Like if I were to just focus on that number alone, I think I'd be slightly intimidated.
Yeah, you have to chunk it down a little bit and break it up.
Everyone starts from their own cartoon unicorn, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually quite jealous.
Our little mascot, I think, that's going to be the mascot of boardrooms and breakthroughs. A little cartoon
But
unicorn.
I think that's, you know, like mindset is like building fitness. Like it's something you practice. Nobody wakes up and is like a world champion athlete. I mean, I've been waking up every day for almost 47 years and I'm still not a world champion athlete, but you know, maybe next year will be my year. But you build it bit by bit.
Yeah.
You know, you start with one step, you start with a shorter distance and you gain confidence, you gain experience. And I think doing long distance stuff is, you know, so many more people that don't do it. I think you actually could do it.
True. Well, you also mentioned that you started around 2019.
Yeah.
So not sort of super early on, but sort
I
of
was, you know, I was just
mid-career.
desperate to kind of like put something new into my life. Like I was kind of in a plateau professionally. I'd kind of lost a lot of the passion that I'd had for my role. And I was like, I need something different. And I don't know what it is. And I just felt super, super stuck at this phase in my life. And I was like, I just didn't have the answer. And somehow running started giving me like a little bit of that feeling at first.
Okay.
And especially when I went out into the mountains and I'd run like 10 or 15 kilometers and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I actually did this. You know, I was being pushed by my coach and my friends that were into it. And it kind of unlocked something in my mind, which was this feeling of possibility of you can do a lot more than you think you can. And you might feel stuck and you might feel a bit like things aren't going your way. You might be unhappy. But you've got the power to make a change. You've got the power to step further than you think you can, run further than you think you can. And that kind of started flooding into like my mindset and my self-belief system.
And then it cascades sort of into various other areas of your life, I'd imagine.
I mean, I pretty much ended up just quitting my job overnight on like a whim and a prayer one day. I was like, no.
Was that the unicorn?
That's it. The unicorn.
That's the unicorn was talking.
And, you know, but I had enough confidence from doing that, which just sounds silly because running over rocks and like a corporate career doesn't seem like they kind of cross over in any way, shape or form, right? But it gave me that push to think, actually, no, you don't have to be
that
stuck.
elevation.
Do it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good problem solver, running. Doesn't matter how fast or how slow you're doing, just having that, being outdoors, the fresh air, whether you're on the beach, in the mountains, it's a great problem solver where actually it's just you, even if you do have music in, it's still kind of just you and your own thoughts. You have no hiding place.
A lot of quality time with yourself.
Exactly.
As well,
and
it's possibly cathartic.
You probably sometimes have some quite interesting conversations with yourself, which you might not want to when you're in a car talking to someone on your phone or whatever. So it kind of forces you into a little bit of reality. And
it's kind of like a movement meditation, isn't it? So I always refer to it as a movement.
I like those two words.
So could I ask, what does run through your brain at that point in time? Like, is there some sort of self-talk? Do you sort of push yourself or say something to yourself when you feel there are moments of that you're on the verge of quitting?
I guess I don't have anything specific. Yeah, it's just the more you do it, like Yola said just then, the more you realize that you can get through it and it's going to end. You know, you're always going to have these moments, and it's probably every single day somebody at work has bad news, but it's like, well, you can't just stop. You have to just kind of keep going and find a way. I don't have anything specific. It's just...
Okay. I was just trying to work out if there's some sort of self-talk, or how do you motivate yourself?
I think if you've entered a race, for example, then like, you know, the motivation is there to finish, right? You don't want to disappoint yourself by not finishing. And I think at long distance and endurance, it's just all about solving problems, isn't it? Because something's going to happen. You might get a blister, you might even trip up. Like you have to make sure you're fueling properly because you're there for a long time. So it's just about dealing with like each stage as it comes along. You might run for 5 or 10K and feel like you're flying, and then you might like have some uphill and think, oh my God, like why the hell did I do this? Like what am I doing
Especially
here?
with very
why is definitely quite a common question. There's no secret there.
But, you know, obviously there's a certain element of like reward, right? When you've achieved something that's really, really
sense
tough,
of
and then it pushes you beyond the point of like where you thought you you'd have to quit, and then some, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm still here, like 80 kilometers in, and I'm still alive and pushing through.
Oh, that's incredible.
It's quite quite
Yeah,
transforming, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that runner's high kicks in. I guess it depends on what your goals are. So everything, I always think everyone's achievements are kind of the same, whether it's 3K, 200K, 500K. It's like, you don't know anyone's journey of what it took to get there. So for me, everyone is on the same path. It doesn't really matter what distance or what time. I have no interest about.
Everyone's got their own start and finish
Yeah,
line.
sometimes just turning up might be the victory.
Absolutely.
The last thing you wanted to do is be there, but you forced yourself. And again, the more you do it, it just becomes a habit. And then obviously, those habits lead to who knows what bigger
That's great
things.
perspective. So, Stephen, as a mindset coach, what would your advice be for parents? Like, what would you say to help a child build their resilience? How can we build resilience in children?
Yeah, it's a good question. You've got to let them fail, and you have to be honest with your kids. Again, I've been a tennis coach for many years, so sometimes parents can sugarcoat things over, and some people might not like this, but it's sort of, to taking part that counts.
The participation trophies.
Yeah, that's probably a different discussion. Participation trophies and medals, and it's just making them realize that it's okay to fail. But I think in this kind of fast-paced world where everything's going on so quickly, it's sort of, we're looking for instant rewards now.
A quick validation.
Yeah. So why isn't my kid the best in the world? And it's like, go and play the lottery. But so I think you've got to be real honest and let them fail. Let them try things they're not good at. And just make them understand that it's okay to fail. And that's actually how you get better. Everybody fails. Sometimes it's hard. We kind of think, our idol, whoever we idolize, that they're just perfect and that they're gods. But actually, they failed as much as anybody. So, you've got to kind of just sort of throw them in the deep end a little bit. And my son's going to rugby tots now, and he wants to come over, but I'm just going to sit on the side, and he's got to learn to get on with it. I'm not going to hold his hand, and you kind of have to be a little bit really cruel to be kind, but just be honest with them.
Never hurt anyone?
Because the real world, when they're older, that is the real world. No one's going to hold your hand. No one's going to tell you everything is great every single day when it probably isn't. So you've got to prepare them for kind of life. I even think about that now for very young kids. Just be honest with them.
The world is changing at a rapid pace. Or I'm just sort of curious though, because when we say mindset coaching, and that it's such a nuanced and all-encompassing term, and what would you say to someone and to help them guide their mindset? How would you tell someone who's struggling with their confidence? And this is a question for both of you.
I think, there's a lot of, surrounding yourself and being very careful about who you surround yourself with and what you're feeding into your mind is so important, because I think we're so overwhelmed by information and content all the time, right? I think that's something that for me has been really crucial, especially when I've had a goal, is to make sure that I'm surrounded by people who support my goal and support my objectives, and being quite ruthless about cutting out distractions, and whether that's, like an activity that you might waste time on, like watching too much television and just sitting on the sofa snacking on potato chips.
Instagram.
Yeah, blocking people on Instagram. Stephen, I'm really sorry, but it's time.
Right in front of me as well. Double tapped. Never mind one tap. There was a double tap.
It was very subtle as well.
Not necessarily in a bad way, but you just have to focus on, like, sit with yourself and like, what is important to me? Like, what is it that I want to achieve? Like, what fulfills me? And there's no right or wrong answers that should be validated by anyone else. It's at the end of the day, like, it's your journey, right? It's your goals. It's your own personal. You only have one life, right? I always say you've only got one and only life. Like, what are you going to do with it? You can't live it for other people, right? You have to be true to like what your values are and what fulfills you. And I think a lot of the time people don't sit enough and really think about that, because we get so caught up with other people's expectations, other people's priorities. When you are in a workplace, often you report to other, you tend to report to other people.
And also trying to be
nice. If you
nice
don't do what your boss likes, it doesn't usually end very well for you, does it?
Generally not.
I think it's important to have these moments. And I think that's where, like, sitting with a coach, and I'm actually doing some executive coaching myself at the moment with someone. And I think just having this opportunity to sit with someone also and reflect, so that there's an external person you answer to, who may be a mentor or someone that gives you a perspective or gives you the space to find a perspective and get it out of your head.
So that we're not just in our own
It's
echo
so
chambers.
important. And I honestly think, I think everyone should do it every so often. Everyone should be unafraid to kind of close a chapter, to say, okay, now I'm in a period of change. Are these goals still the same thing that I wanted like 5 or 10 years ago? Are the people that I'm surrounded with reflective of like who I am? Because no one stays the same.
Of
I feel so
course.
sorry for people that get stuck and they're like too afraid to like make a change.
Yes. And also, I think life is pretty seasonal, as we were just discussing as well. We go through ebbs and flows in our life. We evolve
Exactly.
as humans. Our needs evolve.
Yeah.
Priorities change as well. So to assume that we're all the same and we're going to be the same is,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know,
Yeah, I think like
a
you say,
moot
surround
point.
yourself with good people, not being afraid to say no. That's a big one. People just always saying yes, and then they fall into the trap of they're working on everyone else's goals, and actually they either haven't set their own goals. So normally what I come across is they haven't set their own goals, or they're just constantly thinking about kind of everybody else's. And like you say, it's like, well, it's your life. You know, what do you want to do? Usually,
That could be quite a scary question to
it is
answer.
it is a question.
Yeah,
It
it's
is a
not
question
easy.
to answer because it's always
because you're facing like your own something
Yep.
that can mean like everything to you, right? And
Yeah.
it's very easy to feel scared to try because you're afraid
Oh, absolutely.
you'll fail.
yeah.
But yeah,
No, it is, and it's sort of it's always
practicing
interesting.
failing is good.
Yeah, fail. Yeah, you have to fail.
Well, yeah.
You have to fail.
Which is why what you were saying about teaching children early as well is you know,
It's part of the process.
part of the
Yeah,
process.
I've seen it. If you shelter them, then once they become teenagers, adults, and they get into the real world, it doesn't go so well.
No,
Yeah,
they're
it doesn't go
sheltered
so
and
well.
unprepared, and that's probably not a good recipe
No.
for any sort of future outcomes, I'd imagine. Since this is boardrooms and breakthroughs, and I'm conscious of time as well, we like to keep it nice, light, and crisp. What advice?
Like a salad.
Like a salad, yes. I don't think we've ever been compared to a salad, but okay, I'll take it.
I apologise for that.
It's a compliment.
I'll
It's a
show myself
compliment.
out.
Thank you. It's the first time, but you know, why not? Salads are nice, I suppose. What advice
I've
would you
derailed this
give?
entire conversation. I apologise. Let's bring it
Try
back
and-
on topic.
I can go. I can
Game
go.
face back on. What advice would you give to aspiring athletes?
Well, speaking as an aspiring athlete myself,
She is humble.
I think the most important thing is to surround yourself with people who have a similar goal to you. It's difficult to do everything alone. I think the great thing about living here is there is such an amazing sports community, and I know Stephen will agree because he is in every running group in Dubai. I don't know how
Wonderful,
you do it. I think
okay.
you have a
Yeah.
clone.
Must
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a
there's a
wonderful
few.
social
People
life.
are so welcoming. And, you know, one of the things that I think stopped me for a while was that I had this very false preconception that people who did sports were like super serious and very scary and very intimidating.
Yeah.
And actually nothing is further from the truth, right? Apart from you. 'Cause
Our
quite
conversations.
terrifying.
You know, our conversations.
Scare me, Steve.
Well, there are
But
some
people are so
assumptions.
welcoming. People are so welcoming, you
Yeah.
know, from the coaches to, you know, everyone starts somewhere. And I think when you're passionate and you're into like a sport, you love seeing someone else come and experience that journey. Like last week, a friend of mine did her first ultra marathon, and I was like so excited. I was
wow.
following the little
That's
dot of her
incredible.
race. And it made me remember my first races.
People are genuinely happy for each
Yeah.
other
Yeah,
in,
for sure.
in those
And also, I
communities.
think
I'd
crucially,
imagine.
quite aside from, you know, the sporty part of it, is when you're an adult, like how else are you? I don't know how else you make friends.
To meet people. Oh God, that's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd
I,
imagine
I
so.
tried sitting on my sofa waiting for friends to come and find me,
Show
but they
up.
didn't. So I had to go out in there and find them. And I have to say, like, that for me has also been like a massive game changer, personally and professionally. You know, I've done some random networking through my
Oh, that's
expanded
wonderful.
community of fellow adult sporty people.
Yeah. Well, it's also the bonding over a common interest, and it's sort of natural and organic, as opposed to, I mean, let's try to go out to a bar
Yeah,
or something and
exactly.
meet someone, where it's sort of a little bit forced, and you know.
There's so many, the communities here, honestly, they're so welcoming. And like, whatever level you are, like where you're from, your demographic, it doesn't matter. Like they're very diverse. So
Yeah,
Oh, that's wonderful.
I
to
do
hear.
think
That's my
running
number-
really
that's
is
my
the only
number one.
community where everyone's kind of in it together.
Mm.
You know, I play loads of different sports, and really running where
it's very social, isn't it?
it is very social. No one really cares who's doing what. It's just how's
Well,
it
the
going?
funny thing about sports, I feel, is like everyone's kind of, you know, in their own lane, but at the same time, they're all in their own lanes together. So they're very much focused on what they're doing. There's no comparison, but they're kind of cheering each other on.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of camaraderie, which is really nice, and it's really inclusive.
It's nice, you know, people who do sports, they just want to make themselves better, right? Physically healthier, mentally healthier, more connected with their communities, doing something for themselves that doesn't involve, like a work-related goal, which I think is very important for the balance, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And, that's sort of my thoughts in general with Beyond Careers and everything that I advocate for is that sort of sense of balance to the extent possible, setting healthy boundaries and trying to integrate all parts of us into our lives. And that includes sports, hobbies, family, friends, and, what makes us human beings.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for your time, for being here.
Thank you so much for
Pleasure.
having us. I'm
Such an
really
enjoyable
excited.
conversation.
We're runners. I
And
mean,
I'll
we
be-
can talk about it for hours.
And I'll be-
Should we take the next person's slot?
And I'll
Maybe
be
we can
cheering you
go.
I
on.
don't think there's
Yeah.
anyone coming. Yeah, you can keep going. You can, be okay. We'll wait for the knock on the door.
Thank you so much. Thank
very
you,
sweet.
audience. Thank you
That's
for
a
listening
wrap.
in. That's a wrap.
Oh, thank you.
Bravo, bravo.